19 on KGO. Good evening, I'm Pat Thurston. Stuart Schuffman is here in studio with me, as is Francisco Herrera. Amy Weiss is here, and they are running for mayor against the current mayor, Ed Lee. Stuart is best known by his writing moniker and eponymous website, Broke-Ass Stuart. And he has announced that he's running for mayor, challenging Ed Lee, and what he tells SFist is a journalistic experiment. He says San Francisco's beyond growing pains. It's getting stretch marks. That's pretty funny. Okay,
Thank you.
And so, you know, one of the things, you say that you plan on exploring San Francisco's ridiculously crooked political process from an outsider's perspective. I'm going to get back to that in just a minute. I want to introduce our other candidates. I was going to say contestants. It's the bathing suit competition right now. Francisco Herrera is running for mayor of San Francisco to bring the wisdom of San Francisco's neighborhoods to City Hall. He says San Francisco's changing, but it doesn't have to be for the worse. With leadership that values affordability, cultural heritage, and equity, the city can continue to grow, and I'm anxious to find out how that's going to happen. You say it can evolve without the displacement of those who built their lives here or destroying the fabric that makes San Francisco so wonderful. A lot of people are wondering how you do that. And Amy Weiss is also here. She's a YIMBY supporter, which is the opposite of a NIMBY. Yes, in my backyard, referring to supporting aggressive economic growth via urbanization while advocating.
No, that is not true. I have to stop you right there. That's really not.
All right.
I don't know where you got that.
I don't know either. This is okay.
Yeah.
Well, do tell me then.
Yeah, I started Neighbors Developing Divisadero as a nonprofit in 2011, and we started by pushing back against a Chase Bank that was displacing 2 local businesses. And at that time, I thought, instead of just pushing back against the type of development we don't want to see, I want to say yes in my backyard to inclusive, culturally enriching, and sustainable development. And so I'm not about aggressive urban development. I am exactly the opposite of that. I'm about thoughtful, strategic, creative urban development that's sustainable. And there is a group called YIMBY that is the San Francisco Bay Area Renters Federation. That's why I'm distancing myself a little bit from
SF BARF is what they're called.
SF BARF is a group, and the thing is that they're using I started the term YIMBY, and you know, what are we going to get into a turf war? Like, I started it in San Francisco 4 years ago, saying it's something positive, and then some group comes along and starts using that term here. Out of respect, you would think that they would actually talk to me about it and say, oh, we see that you're using that term. We don't want to step on your toes. But they took their Twitter handle as that after I was already using it. And the thing is that it means finding your yes, and no one can take that from you. When you're saying no to things, it's in the spirit of George Lakoff, who says, don't think of an elephant. You know, when you say that, that's what gets the Democrats in trouble, because they're framing things around Republicans. So we shouldn't say that we're NIMBYs because we're trying to save an historic theater from being demolished, or by pushing back against a bank coming in and displacing things. I want to flip it on its head and say, find your yes, San Francisco. Find your yes. Let's co-create solutions that raise all boats. And so I just had to stop you, because that couldn't be further from a good description of me. What was
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Let's go back to Stuart now, who's also known as Broke-Ass Stuart. And let's talk, you know, you said at the beginning, you said that you wanted to establish an Office of Public Advocacy to deal with the corruption in City Hall. And that seems to be a big part of what's motivating you to run for mayor of San Francisco. What do you see? I mean, where is the political corruption, and how would this public advocacy office actually work?
Oh, there's so much corruption. I mean, we have a long history of corruption.
Well, give me a good example of it as it exists today.
Okay, a good example of it is what came out in the papers a couple months ago with Shrimp Boy and you know, Ed Lee, and this money trail that the FBI is still looking into. Whether or not Ed Lee took, I think, what was it, $10,000 in campaign contributions illegally. And, you know, the Chronicle didn't chase that down at all. Matty and Ross didn't chase that down at all. And it's a shame, because the Chronicle, who's in bed with, you know, Lee, because they're in bed with Willie Brown, have just said, oh, well, I don't know, guys. When, like, if we had a public advocate whose job it would be to actually thoroughly investigate corruption and bureaucratic failure, we would be able to get to the bottom of this.
Isn't there an office that already is supposed to investigate corruption and bureaucratic failure? Isn't that the district attorney's office in San Francisco?
No, the DA actually takes care of criminal cases for individuals. there's a city attorney, who's Dennis Herrera, but their job is to litigate on the side of the city.
Right, right.
So this would be someone
But isn't the corruption criminal?
Yeah, but there isn't a specific place for that right now.
But did somebody say during the break that Herrera is currently investigating the money that Ed Lee took in the Shrimp Boy Chow investigation?
Sure.
Well, I don't know why we call it that, because he's the one person who is claiming innocence in this, and you know, the other people I think have all pled at least partially guilty to what's going on. All right, let's go to Francisco Herrera. You're running, and you know, I think that I see a common theme with a lot of you. It has to do with the development that's going on in San Francisco and the people who are being displaced. So tell us how, I mean, this is a huge issue. How would you remedy it?
A tremendous issue. And let me start by saying that I think we all agree, at least here we've talked about this issue. We really got to change the language here. You know, these people who come to invest in the city and build and all that, they're not developers, they're investors, and they're here very clearly to make a buck. You know, the developers are we, the people of San Francisco, and there's several mechanisms that have been employed, that are in place, the land trust program, small sites acquisition. For example, with land trust, we actually have the ability, and Mayor Lee right now, Ed Lee has the ability to be able to say, we're in a housing crisis emergency, state of emergency. Over 10,000 people have been evicted in the last 3 years. 2,700 children the school district has registered are living either in their cars or in living rooms or on other people's couches. There's over 300 teachers cannot work in San Francisco because they cannot afford to live here. And I think it's over half of the city employees of San Francisco cannot live in their own city, which we all are building together. There's a real crisis here, and we could. Mayor Ed Lee has the ability to say there's an emergency. We will stop the building of luxury apartments for people who do not live here, and we're going to concentrate on building affordable housing, mixed income for people who live here, who make $10,000 a year to people who make $90,000 to $100,000 a year.
Okay, we're going to take a commercial break, but this is an issue I want to come back to with all of you, because this is a huge issue that's going on in San Francisco. There are a lot of people, blue-collar workers in San Francisco, who are working hard and who are losing their homes. They can't afford to live here and to work here, too. What do you do about that, and not just the new development that you're talking about, but the existing properties whose rents have absolutely skyrocketed? You know, people just can't afford to pay the ludicrously high rates that they're being asked to pay right now. So we'll talk about all of this. How do you resolve that situation if you become mayor of San Francisco? And would you have the authority, the power to actually do that as the mayor? I'm Pat Thurston. You can join us at 8080-810. You're listening to KGO.